We're not the freest country. You look at that list, we're like...
The Biden bill removes many work requirements for many of the payments that are being made to people, and it's incentivizing people not to go back to work, which is why we have 10 million open jobs in the United States and people not coming back to work.
That is not what that bill does. In fact...
Yeah. Sentiment. It's also now a fashion statement, I guess, which we've all seen. So when President Biden looks into the microphone and says, pay your fair share, what does that mean?
It means that if you're one of the 55 corporations that literally paid absolutely nothing in federal income taxes in 2020, and in fact received $3.5 billion in tax refunds or rebates, or tax refunds, I should say, maybe you should pay your fair share. But here's the thing, if the tax code is written in a way where corporations can legally take advantage of loopholes and incredibly low effective corporate tax rates, they're going to do it, right? So it's one thing to say pay your fair share. It's another thing to actually write a tax code that is a little more equitable and ensures that everyone is.
Is all this actually true? Like, are people actually, like, are billionaires actively avoiding paying taxes, or what is actually going on? But I'm not even going to cap. I don't know. But if what she's saying is true, that's wild.
In fact, paying their fair share.
Ben, what's pay your fair share mean?
I mean, the obvious answer would be a flat tax, but the longer answer is that the United States has one of the most progressive income tax systems on planet Earth. Most of the systems in, for example, Northern Europe are far less progressive. The top tax rate kicks in a lot lower on the income scale because you have to pay for the large-scale social services. The people who are at the top of the income bracket in the United States, the top quintile, essentially pays all net taxes in the United States. Not some, not most, all. And the reason for that is because there are tax transfers, and the transfer of payments that are inherent in public services do not accrue to the people at the top of the tax bracket. They accrue to everybody else who's receiving that sort of funding. When we talk about higher taxes on corporations, we do not have one of the world's lowest corporate tax rates. We are somewhere in the middle. In look at the OECD countries, we are certainly not the lowest on the totem pole in terms of our corporate tax rate. In fact, right-wing sources like...
You know what's so crazy about this? It's like when I watch these type of videos, or when I'm learning about politics and stuff, or just learning about it, it's like one side will say something and then the other side will come in and be like, well, that's literally just not true. So it just gets you so confused, because I'm just like, what is actually true? Like, she just said, well, billionaires in America aren't paying taxes. And he just said, well, we have one of the most progressive tax codes in the world. So it's like, who do you trust at this point?
Like the Heritage Foundation will say that it is much friendlier to do business in places like Denmark or Sweden in many cases than it is to do business in the United States.
Tax rate's pretty high in Denmark and Sweden.
It is. The personal income tax rate is very high in Denmark and Sweden. The corporate tax rate is basically near or on par with that of the United States. If we were to raise our corporate tax rate the way that President Biden is talking about, we'd actually have a higher corporate tax rate than China currently does. The notion that corporations ought to be paying tax at all, in my view, is mistaken, given the fact that the income is immediately either reinvested in the company or passed on to people who immediately pay all of that tax. By the time you actually receive your income in this country, the income's been taxed about 7 different ways. Right? You're getting taxed through the corporation, then it's passed on to you as salary, which is taxed. If you invest it in the stock market and then you sell your stock, that is taxed as capital gains tax.
He's right, bro. He's definitely right. Because if a corporation is taxed and then they pay me as the employee, I also get taxed. And then when I invest it, then that will also get taxed. So everything is just getting taxed. So what she's saying is raise the tax higher when everything is already taxed high.
When you die, the government taxes that as well. So how many times can you tax the same dollar before people begin to disinvest?
Let me...
I'd like to respond to that, though.
Okay, go ahead. Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
To argue that the corporate tax rates in the United States are too high, or that, I mean, first off, let me just touch on the comparison you gave regarding progressive taxes in European countries versus the United States. I mean, yes, the taxes might be higher in those European countries, but what do people living in those countries get in return? They get incredible childcare. I mean, listen, the average American family two-income household spends a whopping 22% of their household income on childcare alone, right? So when you're talking about European countries that offer quality childcare, that, by the way, that opens up the opportunity for people to go to work, something that we should maybe think about as we're dealing with this labor shortage. 64,000 women left the job force in April alone. Not because they want to, but because they can't afford childcare. Everything in this country is private.
Wait, what? If they left the job force, wouldn't that mean that they have somebody taking care of them to help them, like, live? Because think about it like this, and I'm not saying, here's all I'm saying. If you're able to leave the job force and your quality of life is still, you know, the same as it was before you left the job force, that means that you have someone around who's able to help you take care of the day-to-day living. So just that argument right there, how are you able to leave your job and not, like, you know, become homeless? That's all I'm saying. You would be homeless. If the average person left their job, they'd probably be a little homeless.
Everything has a for-profit model, and there's consequences that come along with that, including for the business community that might want, you know, a more robust social safety net program, or social safety net to ensure that people feel comfortable enough to go to work. But we don't have that here. So yes, people might pay more in taxes, including those lower on the income scale, but what they get in return is far greater than what people in this country have been getting.
The United States has spent, since the beginning of the war on poverty, some $22 trillion in the war on poverty. We spend an awful lot on social services in this country on a per capita level. In fact, it is very much on par with what the European countries spend. It's just not spent particularly well. When it comes to things like childcare, a very young Elizabeth Warren, before she became Senator Elizabeth Warren, specifically wrote about universal childcare, and she said that it actually was contributing to what she called the two-income trap in a book that she...
Bro, how does this dude be knowing all this stuff, bro? Like, how do you know? How do you be knowing this stuff happened, bro? A young Elizabeth Warren wrote something. This dude, man. Bro, you shouldn't have all this information. I'm not even going to hold you.
She wrote in the early 2000s. And what she talked about is the fact that there are a lot of women who, for example, may not want to work, and what you're actually doing is incentivizing people to have to go to work because you are now providing childcare, as opposed to providing a competitive advantage to, for example, families where one parent is working. I agree with you, by the way, that...
And that's what I was saying, bro. Like, if you really think about it, if you're paying more in taxes and they offer you more childcare, that is, like, incentivizing you to go to work. But I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. That's the same. Like, that's just what I observed. However, if a woman is able to leave, or even a man, if somebody's able to leave their job and take care of their child full time, that sounds like a privilege. That sounds like, would you rather, for all the parents out there, because I'm not a parent, I'm not even old enough for real to be no parent, but for all the parents out there, well, I am old enough, but anyway, for all the parents out there, would you rather clock in every single day, or would you rather be able to stay at home and raise your child? Like, that's a real question, because to me, that sounds like a privilege. You have the amount of money, you have the amount of support to where you don't got to go to work every day. You can stay home and take care of your child. That sounds like a privilege, man, but I don't know.
You know, childcare is a very difficult issue. I also agree that this is why we used to have, for example, family structures that were conducive to allowing people to help out. There are many businesses that do provide for some form of childcare. We certainly have many businesses that provide for some form of maternity or paternity leave. The European countries, which obviously have been used as a model by a lot of folks on the left, between 1970 and 1993, they experienced exorbitantly low rates of growth. And the reason for that was because they radically overburdened their social safety net systems. It created enormous social problems. It created enormous immigration problems. They had to scale a lot of those back. And
why would it create immigration problems?
It created immigration problems because a lot of people were coming specifically for the benefits.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yes, that would be to my point, which is it creates more problems very often than it's.
Sure, I guess that's a.
Yes, if I put a free donut sign in my shop, people will come for the.
No, but if you have a robust.
What he's saying makes sense, man. Like, I think America's a great country. If we had, like, I guess free childcare, or I don't even know if it was free, like easier childcare, I guess it probably would stunt the economy's growth. I'm not gonna lie. It probably would stunt the economy's growth the same way it's stunting, like, a European economy's growth. So That does make sense. It would be better though. I do see the benefit of having it, but I don't know the financial backing or financial sense that it would make in America.
You have a society that actually takes care of its workers, right? If you have a society that makes your life a lot easier, people are going to want to immigrate. It's part of the reason why people wanted to come here. People are going to want to live in countries that have both economic opportunity, but also social safety net programs that, again, just make your, I mean, we talk about freedom. If you look at the World Freedom Index, okay, we like to think of the United States as the freest country. We're not the freest country. You look at that list, we're like pretty low down compared to a lot of these Nordic countries. Denmark is top of that list. So look, Denmark has a mixed economy. When we have these debates about, socialism versus capitalism, I think that those debates are a little ridiculous because every country is well, not every country, but most countries are mixed economies.
Right. The United States is a mixed economy.
Exactly. Yep. Now, the issue with the United States is there used to be a time when public universities were free, right? You didn't have to dig yourself into a massive hole to get an education. There was a time in this country where there was universal child care. That was cut down to the point where it's like no longer in existence unless you're desperate and have like no money and need to take advantage of some programs that are available in some states. But my point is, like, we have an issue here where on one hand, we're experiencing a labor shortage. We want people to go back to work. On the other hand, people literally can't afford the childcare necessary in order to put their kids in a daycare, put their kids in childcare, and be able to go to work without their entire paycheck.
The Biden bill removes many work requirements for many of the payments that are being made to people, and it's incentivizing people not to go back to work, which is why we have 10 million open jobs in the United States and people not coming back to work.
That is not what that bill does. In fact, that's not what that bill does.
Are
you talking about the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill?
I am talking about the $3.5 trillion bill.
The $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill offers universal pre-K, which opens up the opportunity for mothers to go to work if they want to go to work. The $3.5 trillion bill, by the way, has all sorts of subsidies for corporations, which I don't really understand why the business community isn't salivating over that, because rather than just going full force with public programs, which I think would be the right way to go, it's offering all sorts of subsidies in these, public-private partnerships. Now, the physical infrastructure bill has a lot more corporate giveaways, which is why the, business community absolutely loves it, offers the chance to privatize public infrastructure, which is why the business community absolutely loves it.
These conversations are always so interesting to me because America is so privileged that we're really having, let's be honest, we're really having a discussion on whether we want to go to work or not. The fact that people are able to survive in America without working, that alone is a privilege. That's like a first world issue for real. So it's like when I hear these discussions, of course I'm a first world citizen. I'm like, yeah, free healthcare. Yeah, free everything. I want everything to be free. I want everything to be free. Houses free, cars free. I would love that. I would just go out there and collect them all. But in all honesty, man, America's a great place. It's actually people out here who, the young lady just said, she said, well, mothers should be able to decide whether they want to go back to work. What human, outside of first world places, majority of the humans on earth are not able to decide if they want to go to work? If I'll bring it even a step further. Most humans on earth have to work every single day. There's no weekends. There's 10-hour, 12-hour days on a farm somewhere. So when I hear these discussions, I'm like, wow, man. It just makes you put life into perspective. We're so privileged, man. This is crazy.
But at the end of the day, if we don't create a society where Americans can actually have families and go to work, then we're going to be in a lot of trouble.
So to go back to your immigration point, you made a mention a moment ago of people immigrating to the country for the benefits. That's just abjectly untrue. The fact is that the United States' great immigration growth throughout the beginning of the Republic, all the way up through about 1930, was entirely driven by...
We have great immigration growth because we are in America. Like, I think sometimes we forget how bad other places are in the world. We just look at our lives like, oh crap, I need to work Fridays. I need to work on Friday. I need to work on Fridays. No, I can't put little Billy in his private lounge daycare center for rich people. I'm just playing, Bob. I'm just playing. But all I'm saying is we live in a great country, man. So, of course, we have problems, but I think it's more good than bad.
By people who are leaving places that in many cases had broader benefits, places like Germany, to come to the United States where there was no social safety net. The fact is that the vast majority of people who used to leave and come to the United States were coming specifically to build a life knowing that they really didn't have a lot of social safety net. Now, that's not an argument that there shouldn't be some state and local possibility for social safety net, but the notion that the way that you build a successful country that is a world power and is capable of not only making sure that its citizens are taken care of, but essentially making sure that the entire Western world is taken care of, which we did throughout the Cold War, the idea that you do that simply by raising the number of social security payments that you're making to people or benefit payments that you're making to people, this is the way that you build that sort of economy, is just non-borne out by empirical
Okay, we've
fact.
had a real far-ranging...
And that's facts, man. Like, people forget, America, we are top 2 leaders in the world. I don't care what nobody say. You got China and America, the powers of the world. You could say Russia, but economically, we're one of the strongest. So I feel like sometimes people who are here want everything. Like, you can't have every aspect of goodness ever in America. Like, how are we going to be the #1 power? How are we going to have the largest economic growth? And we're helping other countries while also having a gigantic safety net for all of the citizens in every aspect. Like, at a certain point, you have to be like, okay, maybe this is not as possible as I would want it to be. But even if we do have that, I mean, even if we don't get that, we still have a great country. Like, it's like a lot of disdain for the United States, and I get it, but I think it's a little ignorant to have it because, in my opinion, we have one of the greatest countries on earth in comparison to other countries. This is why so many people want to be here. So, anyways, I'm getting off track. If you have any suggestions, comment them down below. Hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch y'all later.